I'd like to speak on behalf of SX. I think her name is Jose.
Jose, yeah, I was speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, when I say that we were both probably physically abused as kids, like really abused. Yes or no?
What was that? Talking about
Were,
abuse?
yeah, were you physically just going by your Hispanic accent? I'm Hispanic, and I know like my dad would take his belt off and beat my ass with it. So I imagine you were the same.
Anyway, hey, bro, I'm 43 years old. Back in the day, we got smacked. Like, hop on! He opened the hand, he grabbed the chancleta, the
Oh
flip
yeah,
flop, and he smacked the shit
yeah,
out of me. But it
yeah.
was not abuse, it was education. It was
Sure.
respect. That's how we say it
Right,
here.
Can I just ask the
right.
panel something? Can I just ask? Hands up who wasn't smacked as a kid?
So we were all smacked as a kid.
No, not me.
You weren't smacked.
Well,
Well,
Paul.
that explains an awful lot.
Well, when I was a teenager, but yeah, I was like really, really pushing it. So
I
Hold
got
on,
my
Anthony.
ass.
Do you not think
Explain
there's?
an
Do
awful lot.
you not think there's better methods? I mean, I honestly
No.
feel that the naughty chair. Time out. Who cares? She's asleep. She can't hear me. It is the naughty chair, as far as I'm concerned. We stick her in the same damn place, and it's the naughty chair. Anyway, the naughty chair works. She knows she's really annoyed when she goes on the naughty chair. She'll get cross, and she'll have to stay there. And in some ways, you've got to physically put her on the naughty chair because she tries to get off it. But she hates it, and to me, that is a far better punishment than smacking her and not knowing why she's been smacked. Why would a kid know why she's been smacked? Sit her on a
Yeah,
chair
and
and
it's
tell
the
no,
her.
same
but it's a
fact.
different tactic. It is the startling.
But I'm asking Anthony. The reason I'm asking Anthony is because initially, the first thing Anthony did was send me a message saying, take the video down where you smack Eleanor. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, halfway through you smack her. I'm like, no, it didn't. And then after the show, he gets in touch and he's like, just take it down till you listen to it. I'm like, no, I'm not taking it down. And then I'm not going to say browbeat me, but he basically convinced me to take it offline temporarily and go and have a listen while it was offline. And I went and listened to it and I was like, that's nothing. That's just a noise. But Anthony's like, well, it
No,
sounds
no.
like a smack to me.
Yeah, but hang on. Let's put it in context. What I said was I'm pro smacking, and it didn't bother me if it was. However, the impression that it created was what I was concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, I got that after about the fifth or sixth or 600th person was like, sounds like a smack. I'm like, well, not to me because I know it isn't.
Well, I got fucking my ass smacked as a kid, and it didn't do me any harm. And that's why I'm pro smacking, because I had it and it taught me.
Did you listen to that link I sent you? I found it after the show. Damn it, I didn't get it on the live show. So like, just
Well,
bring it back
I'll
up, like
tell
1
you
minute
if
4
I
or
got
something.
regularly
I was
smacked
just
when
waiting
a
for
kid.
that particular moment to come over the last 2 days. And the first time I did it, I was like, it'll happen straight away. She'll do something. She'll bang something. She'll make a load of noise. And for the entire show, she didn't make a sound. She was like as quiet as a mouse. And then on the second show, when it was like, when you don't want her to be making noise, ordinarily, like I say, I'd be on mute. And you were having a really good back and forth with George. That's when she started doing it. It's like, well, I mean, I wanted to be doing it. I wanted to put it in context for the audience. So I wanted it to be going out. But by the same token, I'm like, I'm hovering over my own mute button because I want the argument to happen. And then you did it, Anthony. So I was like, right, well, if someone's going to mute me anyway, I'll turn my volume up then. I didn't, but you know what I mean? It's like I unmuted myself and just let the entire show be with my mic completely open. But it wasn't until yesterday that I actually got a bit where she jumps on me. It was just look at the drawer. I can now start closing my mic off again and not have her screaming over the top of everybody else and rumpusing the hangout from my mic. But yeah, she jumped on me and made some smacking sound just before she did. And it's like, great. So there's me on camera saying, and with that, I turn the camera on, and she does it every time. She hears me from the other room. She sprints in because she knows I'm doing the outro, and she's going to get a bit of attention for 10 minutes, like undivided attention. So she jumps on my lap for the outro and says goodbye. But in that moment, she
I
just
love
made
it.
another bang. So I was like, great. I can refer somebody to show 427 right at the end and go, listen at the end and tell me that that's me smacking her when you can see me on screen. Anyway, so it means no more irritating Eleanor for most of the show, screaming her head off.
He's been doing that since show 100 or something. Love
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. Pricks. They're just pricks. It's because of Gem Panda. I had to make that decision. I was thinking about it before I made the decision. Should I report this to the police? There's going to be consequences if I do. There will be repercussions if I do, etc., etc., etc. So when it was coming to the point where we're talking about Children of the Flat Earth Discord on what's it called, the on the debate, but I can't remember what the context was. Can't remember how it came up, but in any event, we're talking about Children of the Flat Earth Discord, and somebody in the chat says, have you reported it to the police, just like I did to George? And I was like, well, I have actually considered that, and I'm going to do it right now, because you're right. Now that you've said, have you? It's like, well, I've considered it, but haven't, because of what's the repercussions on me, what's the repercussions on the person I'm, essentially leading the police to. I made no accusations like P. Mars did. P. Mars is like, oh, he's a predator. I don't know what. I have no idea what Gem Panda is or is not. What I do know is that he had a Children of the Flat Earth Discord server that was there to gather info on Flat Earthers' kids, which is an outrage and worthy of being reported to the police. Anyway, it's just repercussions from that. I know it.
On the punishment subject, there are better techniques now that back in the day, which I didn't get smacked a lot, but I remember a few because I've been fighting and yelling with my sisters and my brother. That's when my dad stick his hand on it, start slapping everywhere. But the best way was to take the technology away. By that I mean we only had the TV, but back then we didn't have video games, we didn't have cell phones or computers,
Guys,
etc. Right now is the best. Take the technology away. That's the best punishment.
Say again, Arwin.
I gotta go. I have an appointment in 5 minutes. So.
Oh, bummer. Thanks for being here. I'm going to start the show in a second.
Talk to you guys later.
Later.
Maybe I'll rejoin after. I don't know. See
For us, it's the chair that works. The chair works. Like when I was a kid, my dad would unbuckle his belt and I would hear the jangle and I knew he was going to whip me with it. So it would freak me out. And now when my son, whenever he hears the chair moving, that sound of it rubbing against the wood of the floor, he gets the same visceral reaction.
The naughty chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as I've only got to tap on my watch and she knows what that means. So if I tap on my watch, she knows that means time out and she's going to go on the naughty chair. And she'll sprint away because she knows she's in trouble. It's very, very effective. She knows she's about to get in trouble.
Yes.
Right, I'm going to start the show.
Yeah.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there's a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below this video once it is rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you're currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by The Plain Truth, SX, Sleeping Warrior, Pete Shea, Jose, Earth Flattener, and Chocolate Saying. Good to have you one and all.
Yo, yo.
Greetings, Aristarchus.
The future is now.
Nathan, I've got a question to ask you about the Cavendish experiment.
Okay.
So, I'm thinking back to the people that like Sly Sparkane when he did his little setup with these styrene boards that shouldn't be there. But essentially, what that experiment, said loosely, is supposed to show is that objects of mass will attract objects of mass, correct?
Correct. It's not an experiment, but yes.
Yeah, as I did say, said loosely. So would I be right in thinking that generally speaking, one of the objects on that experiment is significantly bigger than the other object, correct?
The balls, you mean? There's two, one at each end, big one, small ones in the middle, torsion bar in between. Simple.
Yeah, so you have like a bowling ball.
Seen it? You've never seen a Cavendish
like
setup?
that would be your...
I'll just get a picture of it, just so I can put it in context. Keep talking while I bring up a picture.
Sure. So generally, you've got like a bowling ball-sized ball against something the size of a ping pong ball, and the idea is that the big mass attracts the little mass. And it got me thinking about Newton's third law. You know, the one that's cited as being for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I was thinking, well, if you have something that's 4 times bigger, like a bowling ball, and you have something that's small, like a ping pong ball, and it attracts towards it, the bigger one attracts towards it. How does that work with regards to the Earth and the Moon? Because if the Earth is 4 times bigger than the Moon, wouldn't that be attracting it towards it? That would be the gravitational pull, according to this experiment. But there's enough evidence out there, and even George Netanyahu claims that the Moon is traveling further away from us. So why does the Moon appear to contradict the Cavendish experiment? What's the force that's pulling the Moon away if there's an attractive force between masses that's supposed to be pulling it towards the Earth? Because if Earth is 4 times bigger than the Moon, and that's the size they say it is, then shouldn't it be getting pulled towards us because of this attractive force between masses? But in actual fact, science tells us that it is moving further away from us. That seems to contradict Cavendish, correct?
That to me is an honest question, and the Globe believers will answer it with laugh and mockery. For real.
Sure. I mean, George said it the other day, and I've heard it before, that the Moon is supposed to be like moving away from us at the rate of something like 6 centimeters every 10 years or something really minor like that, you know, insignificant, but nonetheless is supposed to be there. But if the Moon is moving further away, doesn't that seem to, at least on the face of it, contradict the Cavendish experiment in that the attractive force or the attractive mass of the Earth being 4 times bigger than the mass of the Moon? Shouldn't that be pulling the Moon towards us and not away from us? So what would be the force or the thing that's contradicting the Cavendish experiment by pushing it the opposite way or pulling it the opposite way? What is that said force?
I guess they would talk about sort of the dynamic system and the other bodies in play in terms of maybe the sun and the greater galaxy centers, etc. I'm pretty sure that this is the explanation that they do give in a theoretical sense. But for me, all of you, I don't dwell too much on these questions because anything to do with a spinning ball Earth is all theoretical. It's all a thought experiment with no basis in reality. So we often mention unicorns here. It's like contemplating the main sort of parting on a unicorn and which way it would naturally fall. I mean, there's no basis in reality. So you can get lost, and this is what they hope to keep you lost in, is these sort of theoretical roads to nowhere. But I'm sure that would be along the lines of the answer that they would give you, Anthony.
George predicted the future 500 years from now, didn't he?
Shout out to Infinite Loops. Ron, why can't you have -3 ice creams, Mong? Infinite Loops has got it. Sorry, go on, carry on.
Can you contextualize what you're talking about for anybody that's watching that hasn't got a vaguest idea what you're talking about when you come to ice cream?
Well, satellites in orbit. Mike, to flesh, what is it? The mass of the Earth is attracting the satellite to it, but at the same time, it's sustaining its orbit. So the Moon is the satellite, and its orbit is what is the centripetal force that pulls it away from the Earth. The Earth is pulling it in, which is centripetal, and the Moon's orbit is centrifugal, so they cancel each other out, right?
Is that the heliocentric explanation? I think A4 said something similar in the chat.
Yeah, that's what I would say, and that's what I would say in my science class in high school or something. That's what my answer would be.
Yeah, learn your doublespeak, people.
Just on a point Nathan was making earlier about space being nonsense, I think the clue is always in the name. And of course, we're given the name astronauts or astronautical, where we have stars in water. What do you think? The US Navy has jurisdiction over space, we are told, which is pretty strange. You'd imagine it to be in the jurisdiction of the Air Force of anything. And of course, we are also told that the astronauts train in underwater tanks, you know. For me, it's a game of clues, and if we invert everything, obviously, actually, what is the opposite of space? For me, it is waters, right? So for me, if you invert everything that they offer us, we'll be closer to the truth. It's a game of clues.
I'd just like to offer, like on the term centripetal, it simply means going around the center of an object. It's extracted from the French word centre pétale, the center of a flower, going around the edges. It's not a force, just a motion. Like you draw a circle around a center point, you're drawing. You know, it's a centripetal drawing. It's not a force.
It is a force.
Well, there's centripetal force. That's different. But the word centripetal means going around a flower, around the central of a flower, the center of a petal. That's all it means. As a force, it has a different meaning. That's why we compound those words. But centripetal as such has no force. It has a meaning, but no force.
Jimmy, what do you think about the idea that if the Cavendish experiment is true, the moon should then be pulled towards Earth, but in fact, according to science, the moon is moving away from Earth? Am I looking into this the wrong way, or is this a fair question, or what?
Were you not happy with my answer?
Second opinion. I just wanted to know what Jimbo thought.
Okay.
Well, if there's force applied to centripetal, then you get a tangential force, a straight line that the object spinning around the center of the pedal wants to go on. The tangent force. It's like the guy with the ball and chain again. He spins around. As soon as you let it go, it goes off on its tangent, a straight line away from the center.
Yeah, that so didn't answer my question, right? Did you hear my question?
Please repeat it.
If the Cavendish experiment is the attractive force between two masses, and then the Earth is 4 times bigger than the moon, why isn't the moon being pulled towards the Earth at the rate that they tell us that it's actually being pushed away from the Earth, or it's being pulled away from the Earth? Shouldn't the Cavendish experiment prevail, and it should be being pulled towards Earth?
When they combine all the motions, the moon is doing like the ISS. Its orbit is based on falling ever so perfectly in front of all of these motions and being in that theoretical perfect spot that represents its orbital position. It's magic.
It's not falling. According to science, it's being pushed away from Earth, not getting pulled.
You know, walking is the fine art of falling forward. You break your fall with your next step. So are you really walking or falling?
Yeah, but we know, according to science at least, the moon is going further away. It's not going towards the Earth.
So they say, based on those
lasers
that are alleged to be pointing at the reflectors.
They show an orbit, they have to have a string attached to it, or a lady's nylon with a tennis ball in the end, or something to represent that tether, that invisible force called gravity that extends from the center of the Earth and the magnetic center ball to apply this force to the moon in the first place. We're right back to R. If R doesn't exist, then why would all the rest exist?
And that's my initial reaction to Cavendish from the very beginning is we don't have a spinning, orbiting test. You can't apply that out. You know, you can't extrapolate that out because it's those two balls are not doing what the solar system is doing.
You know, if you're looking for axial rotation of the Earth, I go back to a 50 cal fired up with 1 minute and 50 seconds of reference frame. You know, anywhere except the North Pole, that bullet should, you know, or the gun and the mover should be moved miles away. You know, at 22 degrees latitude, shooting a 0.5 up should move you 7 miles. Where I am at 45 degrees, in the time it takes the bullet to go round trip, it should move me 16 miles away. Yet I'd have to run for cover. Same thing at the equator. Shoot a gun straight up at the equator, a 0.5 cal. It's still got a minute and 50-second hang time, but yet this 300 yards per second rotation of the Earth at the equator is not manifesting itself, all because of reference frame of the bullet and the fact that the air sticks to the ground all the way up. All this nonsense. One bullet fired up, you have to run for your life. That proves the Earth is not spinning.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be my argument against Simon Dan when he comes back to me with the distance for the sun answer, which is going to be, I'm sure he's going to come back to me with the radar bouncing off Venus calculations. Well, that would prove that the Earth is stationary and not moving, because by the time it takes 7 minutes for the signal to leave, travel the distance to Venus and then get back to Earth, well, in that 7 minutes, the physical Earth itself has orbited the sun by some degree. It's physically in a different place. And the Earth itself has rotated physically. It's in a different place. So if you are able to bounce a radar off Venus and it get back to you, that proves that we are not moving. Because where's the compensation for the orbit of the sun and the rotation of the Earth in the 7 minutes it's took for the signal to get out to Venus and then get back again? Where is that? Where is that? You know what I mean? That needs to be explained.
I'm telling you, it's a universal lock. It's not just a tidal lock. It's a universal lock. Everything's locked.
In
that's
a
why
open
that's
system
why we
burning
have the
energy, it should not be fixed like that. When you say everything's locked, that's an impossibility to an open system moving, hurling through space where air is mobile, water is fluid. Everything's locked.
Yeah,
seems like everything is fairly fluid.
Well, it's we exist on a stationary flat plane, and that's exactly how the universe presents itself to us. Except that's not the reality of the universe.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, according to George's theorizing, if we literally just jump up and we create our own frame of reference, we should land at a point, you know, a few meters behind where we jump up from. I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it? At every step of the way, it's nonsense.
Well, we got the hot air balloon thing coming up. It's a few weeks of hot air balloons that leave in Gatineau and just fly over Ottawa and back. But they're up all day. One day there's going to be 300 and plus going up on the same day. But they're up for hours and hours and hours. If we were rotating underneath them, let's face it, they'd get up in Ottawa and they'd land somewhere probably in Vancouver. It's like a weather balloon, or these balloons people send up. They send them up. They're up for hours to get to altitude. The balloons pop, and they can drive to them.
John?
If the Earth was spinning underneath them, they'd have to drive to, I don't know, Europe or something to recoup their balloon. Maybe find them in Poland or something.
Hello, John.
What's that?
Good to have you.
What's going on, man? Sorry to interrupt you, Jimbo. Go ahead.
It's cool, but some of the concepts like the air is moving and locked to the surface of the Earth, and, you know, that's what's holding it, and then everything all goes on its free game when it comes to Coriolis and the behavior of objects when they leave the muzzle of a gun and stuff. And wow, we're up to 3 frames of reference now for that. I say just go back to a 50 cal fired up. Make sure your Nikes are nice and tight, and you have shelter somewhere that can stop, you know, a round coming down at 500 miles an hour, because it's going to come back down, and, you know, if you're not lucky, it'll kill you. If the Earth was rotating around an axis, you could fire up and someone miles away would be killed. But no, you fire an arrow up, a cannon up, a 0.5 with almost 2 minutes, you know, of airtime, over 2 minutes. Jeez, where's the rotation? And they claim that when you fire a 50 cal horizontally at a target, you have to calculate as a sniper all this bullshit Coriolis. That's 1,200 yards in a second. But yet it can go straight up and not feel any Coriolis in a minute and 50 seconds. I mean, it's just so evident. There's no axial rotation to the Earth, period. And
you ever fire a 50 cal?
No, no. I wish I would have had that. I've gone Magnum and stuff, 357. Never did a 44.
It's a rush.
Oh, I know.
I got an answer to Anthony's question.
Well, what's the question?
What's the question? You asked the question.
Is it the one about the moon? Why the moon, if the Cavendish experiment is true, why isn't the moon being pulled towards the Earth?
No, you said about the Cavendish experiment according to science. Well, here's my answer. It's not an experiment, and it's according to pseudoscience. So there's my answer.
Yeah.
In other words, it doesn't deserve an answer.
Exactly.
I got an explanation yesterday about the phone call to the moon.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yes. So I asked about the phone call to the moon to a few globe believers, and they were really nice. I felt welcome there. You know, at least they let me ask questions, and they asked nicely. I didn't get insulted, so it was cool. So the explanation, it made sense to me, the explanation. Now, did I believe it? Not really, but it made sense, so I'm going to give it out there. For those that think that a phone call to the moon was made, like the guy grabbed the phone and they contacted straight to the moon, we are all wrong. He was communicating to Houston, to the control panel. So Houston was in contact to the moon, and then they, in the Houston control panel, the control towers, they communicated to the president, and he was talking, you know, with that, the connection, you know, through that connection. So he wasn't talking to the moon, he was talking to just Houston. That's the explanation. How about that?
John?
And how did Houston communicate with them?
That's another another $20. There now, if you believe the moon, whatever on the moon, I mean, they had, if you believe in the moon landings, they've been communicating in Houston in the control center or whatever to the moon, and then they just communicated to the president. That's the explanation.
The moon? How'd they get to the moon? There's no vacuum of space.
Exactly. Yeah, those I didn't go down the rabbit hole on the moon landings because they know and I know. I don't believe none of that BS. I just asked on the phone call because it was interesting to me, that point. And yeah, they gave me a logic explanation. I don't believe nothing on the moon landing. I don't believe anything on none of that, but it made sense. So I'm just giving it to you.
Well, we don't need explanations. We need the explanation along with scientific experiment to validate it. Because anyone can give you an explanation. Heck, just ask me a question. I'll give you an explanation. Go ahead, shoot away.
I'm not sure if in 69 the phone companies and a lot of hotels and everything still weren't on those jacks that you had to pull in to connect each room and connect different people to each other. They actually had an operator with a physical jack, like, you know, a headset for a microphone or the jack to a mic that you'd have to plug into different holes to connect people to different lines. And that's around what, when they went to the moon? We were still had operators plugging in like headphone jacks into socket sets and boards in front of them.
And then I got an answer for R, for the radius of the Earth.
Wow.
And they say, I know, right? That's a big one. And they say, but it has been measured in the surface. You know, it has been physically measured in the surface, so we can only deduce it's a sphere because it's no other shape. And I dropped the mic and I kind of passed out for a second with the answer.
It's a deduction rather than a measurement.
Yeah. Eratosthenes was, of course, the first to see Earth as is, right, in its spherical form. And as I continuously say, the clue is always in the name. The man didn't exist, but Eratosthenes is a perfect anagram of sees not Earth. Again, going back to the inversion or the reversal principle. John asked there for a question. I wouldn't mind an answer on this, John, if you can. You said there's no such thing as the vacuum of space, and also we agree that you can't have pressure without a container. Well, does that mean that you hold to an enclosed Earth under some form of barrier? And if you have done away with the vacuum of space, what have you filled in terms of your own personal picture to replace it with?
Don't know. It's a firmament. It's a dome over top, right? Got to be a container. You got to be inside a closed system for air pressure. So the whole story is detailed quite extensively. It's called the Holy Bible. And you see these people that are going up against flat earthers, right, are not really against the flat earth. Okay? They're not against that. You see, because if you have a flat earth domed, right, then there must be a creator. This is the whole game, people. See, they can't reckon with the fact that there's a creator. That's why. That's why you get all this vitriol in these attacks, because they'll defend their fairy tale nothingness against a creator. It's just that simple. So I don't have to define what it is. I don't know what it is. Between us and the dome, I have no idea. Right?
Yeah. It seems according to the Bible that it may be indeed waters beyond, right?
Yeah, according to scripture, there are waters above the dome.
Right.
Well, I don't, that's what it says. And for me, as a Christian, that's what it means. Period. End of story. I don't need to explain it to you anymore. I don't need to explain it to anyone.
Logically,
right?
If you don't know something, what sense does it make to replace it with your own supposition or speculation of what that is in the first place? Isn't it just enough to accept that there are some things you don't know? You can think about them, but accept that you don't know while you're trying to resolve them, but not make up something to fill in the blank.
Because you don't know something.
We have now, fill in the blank.
Right?
So don't worry about it, folks. If they're lashing out at you, it's nothing personal, right? They're just kicking against the pricks because of the creator. That's all.
Presupposing a creator is like presupposing gravity.
Don't need to presuppose a creator.
Of course you do.
I already validated.
What happens?
Go back about 3 months ago.
You can't validate that.
I can't. You need to get up to speed. There's a presentation about, I don't know, Nathan, 3 months ago. I don't know what it is.
Probably
it's called the Creator versus Atheism. Now go back there and listen to that, and then come back here, and then you can refute my 4 proofs. 3 of them are scientific proofs, by the way. Thank you.
For me, regarding the Bible, I've certainly come in my own reckoning to understand Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 being 2 different tales involving 2 different gods, if you will. God from Genesis 1 and Lord God from Genesis 2.
That's hogwash.
Well, if you say so, John, if you say so. I think with a careful reading of it, certainly all the signs are there. We're looking at 2 different stories.
Hogwash.
I think the big enemy is the word science in itself, because it's always been used to dismantle creation evidence. Anything that really shows basically, stuff that stationary Earth. No, they have a heliocentric. They've got to spin around a ball with all these forces.
That's not science, Jimbo.
I know, but it's not pseudoscience in the sense that people are taught that we're on a spinning ball.
No, it's pseudoscience because it's pseudoscience. That's why.
Yes, it's pseudoscience, but it's taught.
It's masquerading as science.
Yes. Each of these things that science specifically attacks, which is creation itself, they do that with their Big Bang science. The evolution, they do that with their Darwinian science. And stationary
evolution.
Earth.
Evolution, what's that?
Yeah, but in any case, they use every element they can of science to basically reverse engineer what is in front of them, which is creation.
And there you go. Why did they do that? Well, because they can't have a creator. Here we go back again, just like I told you, right? This is real simple, real easy diagnosis. All you have to do is be able to, launch pad security here. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this one out. Thanks.
So I've been corrected in the chat. Sorry, I've been corrected that he wasn't talking to Houston. I think he was being the moon was communicating to Australia or some BS like that. Maybe I'm being trolled in the chat, and then he was being relayed to Houston But I might have made a mistake. But the thing is, the president was not talking to the moon directly. He was being relayed to another station. So that's the explanation. I think it's all bullshit anyway. You know.
Was it not in
I just have to
Australia?
correct
Was it
myself.
not Australia that were?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Was it not Australia that did the relay? I'm sure they even made a movie about it called. I think it's called The Dish. The Dish is an Australian movie. Apparently did quite well. JLB covered it. I'm pretty sure the relay was handled by Australia. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments.
Yeah, indeed. I made a mistake because it's. I mean, I got all.
Are we getting sniped?
Are we getting sniped?
Right.
I don't think so.
No,
I
I'm
think
good. I dropped. So yeah, I was trying to verbatim to just explain it by word, but the main idea is that.
Don't
We're
kick me.
losing you, Jose.
Don't kick me.
Is someone in the back chat then?
Right.
I didn't see.
I don't know.
anybody.
I just got a note saying I was removed.
Oh right. Earth Flattener, hey, how you doing?
Hey, I was removed.
What was the question, Jen?
Right, I'll shut up and just pay attention to what's going on with the icons. Hopefully you'll talk amongst yourselves. Or not? Has everyone gone? Is that the end of the show?
No, just
No, we're still here.
We're
We're waiting.
topic a bit, or just to cause the lull. This, you know. So just...
Okay, well, John, did you happen to catch Conspiracy Cats?
Earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I caught that. That was pretty funny.
So, I mean, it basically just asserted that we don't need a container, and then showed us on a whiteboard.
Yeah, well, he put a square or a rectangle in the middle and said that was a box, and then he put a bunch of dots around the box. But where did he get the air pressure from the dots around the box?
Yeah.
And
well,
you know, stationary air in a bottle, is it exerting a force that's active? Or, you know, a force equals mass times acceleration. If nothing's accelerating inside the bottle with the airs that are in it,
what's force again?
It's in motion, but force mass times acceleration.
No, I said, what is it?
Oh, I don't know. It's but inside a bottle of air that's just sitting there, there is force exerted on the sides of the bottle. The air is in motion, but it's not exerting a force that's moving any objects per se, ping pong balls or other stuff.
Yeah, just be careful when people define things with equations. That's not a definition. Right?
No, oh, no,
I can ask you for, you know, that's tantamount to me asking you, okay, define a banana, and you give me an equation. Well, I'd like to see that equation. Thank you.
Yeah, well, my point was that, you know, there's no real force of motion being applied to any objects, and therefore, even though it's in motion, it's considered static or stationary, like the air. You know, it can be calm day, no wind, but the air is still moving a bit. Air is mobile, right?
Furthermore, if they say mass, ask them to define mass, right? And then get the popcorn. Thank you.
And John, when it comes to pressure, for example, air, the formula for air is nitrogen and oxygen in a percentage, right? There's no water in that. So it has a pressure, air with no water in it. Then you have vapor pressure that you can add to the already air pressure. And that's much different component and factor, dependent on heat, other things. But when water evaporates, I was getting to this earlier, you know, air is one thing to say air pressure. What causes all this variation in air pressures? Well, evaporation of water from surfaces. A gallon of water, well, it needs a lot of air to expand into. It increases the relative humidity, transfers energy. Warm air with water rises. As it rises, it cools, it condenses, creates more low pressure, and it's a cycle. So the air itself and air pressure, without the water would be relatively constant. It is the vapor pressure, changes in the vapor pressure, that give us our weather. And another important thing, like when the pressure is different at the base of Everest and the top of Everest, the vapor pressure in the water is a factor in there too. So yeah, there are differences.
What does that have to do? What does that have to do with how do you have a gas pressure in an open system? That has nothing to do with the question.
I understand that, but all I'm saying is I know it's a contained system. You know, it has to. You can't have pressure, like I say. You know, a valve stem is needed to put on a tire so you can inflate it and ride your bicycle or your car or your truck. These valve stems, they're used everywhere. They're Schrader valves. Now, they're a little bit of spring, rubber, and pieces of metal in a little cylinder with some rubber. Now, we use them all over in pressurized systems. They're a standard. And they're also used anytime, like in space and car engines, or they're supposed to be used everywhere that you need to
in space.
Airs or, yes. Well, how do you think they seal or pressurize a valve? The only valve that's available on the market is the Schrader valve, like your bicycle tire valve, mostly.
They don't.
It's cheap. It's
abundant.
They
don't, because the vacuum of space doesn't exist.
I know, but you know, in theory, they'd have to use a
little
spring. Yeah, like I say, your valves on your car tires, they get a little water, they rust out, they start leaking. They can't last for 15 years. Anyway.
So like I said the other day, with all the flat earthers, listen up. Like I said, Nathan gave you the #1 pagan religitard, heliocentric spinning ball killer, right? Remember the question, right? This is going to be like Pavlov's dog. Every time I knock, okay? How do you have gas pressure in an open system?
I just put it on timestamps on the last video. So on video number 429, I've now got timestamps. I'll just read out how the conversation with Conspiracy Cats went when asked that exact question. So at 21:40, how do we have gas pressure without a container? First time I ask him. 27:18, we don't need a container, shows whiteboard. 27:28, show me gas pressure without a container. Second time I ask him. 28:02, shows me gas pressure without a container. Number 3 asked time of asking. 28:39, you don't understand pressure. 28:52, show me gas pressure without a container. 29:04, I'm not one of your bum boys. And I wrote a little comment at the bottom. Conspiracy Cats will henceforth be known as a bum boy until he can demonstrate gas pressure without a container. So chop chop, bum boy.
Yeah, and another thing, be careful in those discussions too, because they'll try to weasel in just pressure. We're specifically talking about gas pressure. We're not talking about shark bite pressure or crocodile bite pressure, right? Always focus on the words that people are saying. Words mean things. We're talking about specifically gas pressure. Thank you.
Yeah, debunk space.
In that conversation, Tall Mountain always come in conversation about pressure gradients.
Yeah, that's what George did yesterday. So we have a hurricane. We've got a 2 psi difference between the centre and the outside of the hurricane. So it's like, yeah, so we definitely have gas pressure. And you're telling us about the differences between those gas pressures. Well, where did you get the gas pressure from in the first place? Because you can't have gas pressure without a container. It's simple. And every time you ask anybody, it will resort to theory and whiteboards. That's what they've got.
No, speculation.
Speculation. Whiteboard. Certainly not scientific theory, but yes, speculation on a whiteboard and telling you basically you don't need a container. You can still have gas pressure pressing on a balloon that's in the atmosphere amongst the pressure differentials. You go, oh, okay, well, if you've got a pressure differential, you've still got a top layer that's got to press on something. Where'd you get the gas pressure without the container? There's no answer. And the point of all this, it debunks the medium of space. You can't have space with us absolutely certain that we've got gas pressure. It's coming in and out of my lungs right now. So that bit we're certain of. What about the other bit? Space. Yeah, well, for that to be there, it needs to be a vacuum next to pressurized gas. Well, where'd you get the pressurized gas in the first place? We've definitely got that bit. So let's get the bit we know about tied down first. Where'd you get the pressure from? You'd need a container. According to their religion, they're in an open system. They can travel to the moon, right? Well, they can fake it on a Hollywood set. But they say they can go to the moon, right? Well, that requires an open system. So we've got entropy, the gas would all dissipate, and then equalise in the rest of the space. We'd have no gas. But we do, we've got gas pressure. Happy with that we have, we're all alive because of it. So where'd you get the gas pressure from, Globeheads?
Exactly, you got it. That's the whole argument. The house of cards collapses under that, because if you don't have no vacuum of space, then all those fairy tales go by the wayside, and you just fade the news. If they lied about that, they're lying about everything. Thank you.
Yep, this is Red's rhetoric. That'll be the first question he gets asked. How do we have gas pressure without a container? Because from that point on, anything that Red's rhetoric asserts about space, I'll say, hang on a second. We need to prove that medium, don't we? Yeah? Because we've got gas pressure.
Red too. Red, say that again?
My bitch.
Oh, your bitch. Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that punk-ass bitch will never come here. Because he'll have his ass handed to him. He thinks he's owed a level playing field. Yeah? Well, no. He's puffed his chest out after going up against Jaren, and Jaren owed him because of some barter agreement that they had going on. Me, I don't owe Reds anything, except a decent ass beating, which is what he'll get. But what he's done foolishly is declared to his audience he wants to debate me. So throughout the chat comments, one of which I found out was actually Red Rhetoric himself, just using a sock account because he's a coward, but he made a grammatical error and referred to himself as me. And I was like, oh, hi, Reds. How you doing, Reds? By then it was too late, so he started talking back and forth to me as his sock. He's a coward. He's even a faceless coward on his original account. Red's Rhetoric's not his name. But he's hiding his sock coward account with a further sock coward account. You're like, my God, this guy's a complete pansy. But in essence, he thinks he's got some sort of bartering chip with me like he had with Jaren. But he got the reality sandwich he deserved, which is he only had two options. Join and face the crocodile. I'll explain that in a minute. Or fly away like the stork. So, when I tuned in after I'd been called out by Reds, very foolish Reds, because you've only got one choice if you want to debate me, my friend. Come here and debate me. I go to his channel to find he's streaming a Family Guy cartoon where a stork's standing on the beach or on the shore looking at a crocodile. Now, the crocodile doesn't say a word, he just stares at the stork. He looks quite full, looks like he's had a few storks to eat that day. Nonetheless, the stork's giving him the old verbals, going, yeah, you can't get me here, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, that's Red's rhetoric. He's left with two choices. Get in with the shark and tangle with the shark, or fly away. Those are his only two options. And that's precisely what Red's rhetoric will do. He'll tuck his tail between his legs and flap away into the sky, going, he didn't meet my bitch demands. I'm a real manly man. Look, I put my demands down and he didn't meet them. And I'll just say the same thing. You only had two options. Join, face the music, the crocodile, me, or fly away. So anybody who's a fan of Red's rhetoric, he wants to debate me, and he can. He can just come in and do it. That's his only option if he wants to debate me. I don't owe him anything. But if he wants to debate me as he's declared he does, very foolish, he's going to have to come in here. Or not, he can sod off. I don't care either way. But given that he's declared he wants to debate me and he's got an open door to do so, you would expect him to take that opportunity as he feels truth is on his side. Until he gets asked the very first question. How do you have gas pressure without a container?
I watched a few minutes of Beyond the Imaginary Curve, and Gav gave an interesting point. They went a few months to some kind of scientist convention, and they were talking about the vacuum of space. And the scientists in the presentation, they say there's no perfect vacuum out there. There's enough molecules out there in the empty space that they can throw a theoretic fabric or blanket and gather for, if they go hundreds of thousands of light years away, they can gather all the matter and they can make like a cup of beer of the matter. How about that? So they say it's not a perfect vacuum because there's matter out there and molecules that escape the Earth atmosphere. And that was like, oh my God, that's painful to hear that.
Boy, that sounded like science right there.
No response from Jose.
Yep.
That was science,
indeed.
boy. Yeah. That's
right. And everybody was like, yeah, clapping, like, oh, that's amazing, you know.
That's amazing science. Oh, jeez, oh man, people.
Well, they've been doing that, right? They've been like modifying their all their stuff since flat earth start questioning things, and they keep modifying things over and over.
Modifying? No, that's been their fairy tale story ever since the beginning.
So I've got a question for you, John. Why would they have such a glaring contradiction in Coriolis in the first place? Anthony and I were discussing this last night, and what we're basically speculating was, is it just because this was established before powered flight, which is the biggest, you know, that's the coup de grace at the end of it. Had we have got there with George, we'd eventually have got him to concede, based on a million citations, that the Earth rotates underneath the independent atmosphere. So therefore you have Coriolis. That's the whole point of their religitard system, and that's how it's established. But powered flight obliterates it. Helicopters obliterate it. So once they concede it's travelling underneath, and you don't have that effect of a helicopter rising up with the Earth continuing to rotate underneath it, it debunks that completely. So why would they have this glaring contradiction in that system? Is it just a psychopath having a bit of Jupiter's delight? Or is it because it was pre-powered flight? What do you think the reason for this massive problem is?
Well, they just pile BS on top of BS, right? And whenever they get people thinking, it's really heavy indoctrination, I think. Whenever you say Coriolis effect to people, the people that know or have some kind of clue on what those two terms mean, what do they immediately think, right? They think of hurricanes, you know, spinning in opposite directions. That's the Coriolis effect. That's it. They don't know anything about, you know, the causes. See, the really important thing is the causes of the Coriolis effect, not the effect itself. So what they do is they're just putting out a term, just like they do with science. Well, science says science, and everyone thinks it's science with some kind of superimposed veracity, right? And they just get people parroting it, and they have no depth. Once you start asking them just very simple questions, it's all Formica deep, right? As soon as you start asking any questions, it all falls apart. So my answer to you is they just make it up, right? Oh, that's the Coriolis effect. You say it, if you say it, keep saying things over and over and over again, well, they become true to most people.
Right, until you're on the ropes like George, and you're either of the understanding that this needs obfuscating, or he's, as accused, genuinely senile, because they could, you know, what other options have you got? Because it's obviously doublespeak. It obviously contradicts all of the definitions that have been shown to him. So why would he doggedly press forward, stating that the Earth and atmosphere are attached together? You know, completely negating.
Well, they have to doggedly press.
Go on.
I'm sorry, Nathan. You're cutting in and out.
My bad.
So I only caught little bits and pieces of it.
So yeah, what I was saying was, why would you need to doggedly assert that the Earth is attached to the atmosphere, which would basically negate there being any Coriolis? And the answer is because that's the situation, that they need closed circumstances, because that's the reality we are faced with. In reality, we don't have any Coriolis effect. There are no rotating reference frames. The Earth is stationary. We're not moving a smegging inch. So therefore, when they give an explanation of something that is necessitated by a spinning ball Earth with an atmosphere and an open system, the whole thing is a complete nonsense. Ah, damn it, we disconnected. Still recording, but we've lost the live stream temporarily. Don't know why. Well, hopefully it'll come back online in a second. Son of a bitch. We're back online.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead. I only caught doggedly assert.
Yeah, so I was saying, why would someone like George doggedly assert that we've got an atmosphere that's attached to a spinning ball Earth? And the answer is simple, because if you don't have it attached, it's subject to two things. A problem with entropy, it's going to leak into the space, the vacuum, and secondly, plane travel or helicopter's the easiest. It travels up and the Earth carries on underneath it, but that's not what we experience in reality. So someone like George has to assert the position that what we see is Earth carrying the atmosphere with it, because if you go outside, you've only got to look around. Obviously the Earth's not travelling independently of any atmosphere. That's not what we experience. So the verbal explanation from George would match our reality. You know, you don't see two reference frames when you go outside. If you jump up in the air, the Earth doesn't carry on going underneath you. Of course not. We've got one reference frame and we're stationary. As far as we can ascertain, we're not moving an inch. So to match that, you've got to defy what the actual definition of the Coriolis effect is, even though it's part of the heliocentric religious belief. You do have Coriolis according to heliocentric belief. Therefore, you have the Earth rotating underneath you. But that causes a problem with planes. So you've got a double-edged problem. You can't have a pressurised system without a container, and you can't have Coriolis with planes taking the same journey time, east to west and west to east. So it's riddled, basically, isn't it? Heliocentrism is riddled with doublespeak and contradiction.
It's all riddled. All of the pseudosciences are riddled with contradiction. Another thing that's a big problem is, as soon as somebody says Coriolis effect, they immediately think of the Earth, right? That's all you need is a merry-go-round, and you can show the Coriolis effect. It's a pseudo force. See, it's an apparent deflection, right? It's not an actual deflection. These things aren't deflecting. I keep stressing this. It's only an apparent deflection because you're on the rotating coordinate system, right? Following their story. It's just an apparent deflection anyway. It's not actually deflecting. So I think it's, like I said, it comes back to indoctrination, right? You keep on saying the same thing over and over and over again, and people just come to believe it, right? I think Goebbels was one of the ones that said that, the propaganda minister over there, right? And it's true. He had it right? So it's simple indoctrination. All you need to do to combat it is just simple education. I mean, an incoherent second grader can evaluate this stuff, right? You don't need a PhD in physics to figure out that you need a container to hold gas pressure. You don't need anything else. So arguing this I'm rolling my eyes back here, dude. Right?
This is what Brian Mullen came up against, because he just goes out, he looks up the definition of how the Earth works, and he looks at Coriolis, and it says the Earth rotates underneath independently, and he goes, well, if you've got separate reference frames, hey Apollo, then you'll have different duration times of flights. And what does he get for that? His job threatened.
Well, yeah, because they have to attack. Like I told you when I first came in, they have to doggedly attack. It's not a personal attack. So I know it's hard to remove yourself from that, and I get caught up in it too, but it's not a personal attack. Like I said, it's just kicking against the pricks, right? It all boils down to a creator or no creator. That's all it boils down to. They can't have a creator. Oh, no. Can't have a creator, man. Right? because they're fairy tale ends. Simple as that. That's why.
What was the stream that you and I did together? It was called Atheism versus a Creator or something like that. I can't remember the exact title.
It was the Creator versus Atheism.
I'll stick a link to it in the info box, so I'll look it up now and see if I can find it and chuck it in the chat if I do, or if not, I'll chuck it in afterwards and stick it in the info box below this video. But check it out. So I think there was several scientific evidences for the Creator presented by John in a reasonably concise format. I think it took about an hour to go through it in detail.
Yes.
Yeah, check it out.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. How you doing? Good to have you back.
I am doing fairly well.
So we've got a few people in the chat saying scientific evidence for the Creator. So yeah, that was on that show. That's pretty much what I just said in those exact words, did I not?
Yeah, just go whistling past the graveyard. I must have put that. I'll tell you what, it's been over 10,000 times. That's conservative over the past 12 years where I put those 4 proofs out, right? And people just walk by. You know how they do it. Oh, I've never seen any evidence. They just parrot the same thing over and over and over again. The nonsense they got from that knucklehead Hitchens, they freaking worship that guy. I mean, my daughter can make him look like a blithering idiot within 2 minutes. I mean, it's just ridiculous stuff, man. Go back to that presentation. There easily 4 proofs, 2 scientific evidences. The other 2 are logical consistency with known established scientific principles. It's real easy. Go ahead and refute them. Best wishes. Thank you.
Got a really rough stream. It's clicking in and out of on and offline, so just in the middle. I will actually stick it in the chat just so it does make it to the render without me having to do anything. If you can, hopefully someone can give some closing points just before we lose the stream again.
Yeah, the spinning ball religion is dead. DOA. In fact, it didn't even have to arrive. It didn't have a beginning. It was conjured from fairy tale pseudoscience priest people. It's just that simple. It's a joke, really. Thank you.
Excellent. And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated this show, then you know exactly what to do. But if you like the show, maybe consider checking out Quantum Eraser video in the link below, or sharing with a friend, or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!